Heavlin.
It's lovely to be back here. There's something about this place. There's like a sense of sacredness, holiness, whatever you want to call it. It's special. And I don't know if it's because of the quality of your speakers or the quality of your musicians or the quality of your singers, but I think it has to do with the love that you have for each other. But every time I come here, I feel it.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm going to be reading a poem today by Naomi Shihab Nye, and she is born in St. Louis, Missouri, to a Palestinian father and an American mother. She went to high school for 1 year in Ramallah on the West Bank, in the old city of Jerusalem, and then the rest of her time in San Antonio, Texas. So the poem, Jerusalem, appears in her 1994 anthology entitled Red Suitcase. To a region saturated by history and besotted by honor, revenge, and retribution, this poem foreshadows everything the service has to offer today. Jerusalem by Naomi Shihab Nye. I'm not interested in who suffered most. I'm interested in people getting over it. Once, when my father was a boy, a stone hit him on the head and hair would never grow there. Our fingers found the tender spot and its riddle. The boy who has fallen stands up. A bucket of pears in his mother's doorway welcomes him home. The pears are not crying. Later, his friend who threw the stone says he was aiming at a bird. And my father, he starts growing wings. Each carries a tender spot, something our lives forgot to give us. A man builds a house and says, I am native now. A woman speaks to a tree in place of her son, and olives come. A child's poem says, I don't like wars. They end up with monuments. He's painting a bird with wings, wide enough to cover 2 roofs at once. Why are we so monumentally slow? Soldiers stock a pharmacy, big guns, little pills. You know, if you tilt your head just slightly, it's ridiculous. There's a place in my brain where hate won't grow. I touch its riddle, wind and seeds. Something pokes us as we sleep. It's late, but everything comes next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to be here. As noted, we of UUCC feel special bonds here with UUCLC. I'm before many familiar faces, and I feel great warmth in this room, as if in witness to a shared miracle. And more gratitude. Bruce Raffnell first told me of the great treaty of 1722, and for further detail, I depended on the research and writings of Nicole Eustace. And for the Iliad, I rely on the commentary of poet, translator, and Homer scholar Emily Wilson. Easter's next week. And I make Easter eggs in the Ukrainian style. These are patterns of colors. And sometime after Thanksgiving, I add a string to 2 or 3 and hang them on our Christmas tree. And so over the years, the collection builds up. And so you might understand when I see an onyx egg next to my wife's sewing box, it catches my eye. It's a darning egg. And it's to provide a round surface while repairing the heel of a sock. Darning's like this. The egg goes in the heel of the sock where the hole is, and it stretches the sock so that the hole's held smoothly open. And then yarn about the same gauge, you stitch it to span the hole and up and down, and this is the warp of the repair. And then perpendicular to the warp, up and down, you weave alternately above and below the warp, and that's the weft of the weave. And a circle of stitches secures the patch, and you iron it, touch of ironing makes it flat, and voila, you have a darned sock.
Hell no. That's too much work.
So a few notes about darning socks. First, darning's not knitting. In some nerdy needlecraft sense, darning's more like weaving. The darn hole doesn't become invisible. It leaves a scar. You can make darning patches less visible by matching the sock's color, or you can make it something decorative by using contrasting colors. But it's not seamless. It's not an invisible repair. It's not even knitting. Darning makes the sock both serviceable and adds a layer to the sock, to the history of the sock. Second, darning's meditative. When you darn, you and your fingers are quite preoccupied by the darning and its various fine motor tasks. And yet, part of your mind frees up to contemplate stuff. All needlecrafts share this meditative aspect. Fingers busy while part of your brain on background slips forward. In darning a sock, you make small decisions, picking points to draw a warp thread, drawing the length of the weft thread, securing the darning edge, working with the non-match of the knit. All things you and your fingers consider, while another part of your mind ponders and wonders more widely. Oh, and there's something a darner never does, never even considers doing, would find ridiculous if it were ever even suggested. A darner never picks up a hammer to pulverize the rock that tore the hole in the sock you are darning. And yet, this is exactly how our criminal justice system operates. Eye for an eye justice. Abrahamic justice is deeply embedded in our Western culture and some others. Anthropologists call the kind of culture that seeks retributions for slights and injuries, and honor culture. The Iliad, Homer's epic poem set during the Trojan War, is one tale about honor, revenge, and the tragic consequences. Today, I contemplate this work partly to avoid suggesting that all our problems stem from the Bible, and partly to show the deep roots of honor culture in Western civilization. Now, Homer's poem, the Iliad, is not about the Trojan War, but it is set within the Trojan War. Neither the beginning of this war nor its conclusion are included in the Iliad. The Iliad begins 10 years in, and the Greeks' foremost hero, Achilles, he's pouting on the sidelines, honor offended, about a girl, a sex slave actually, Briseis, taken from him by the Greek commander Agamemnon. So Achilles is on strike, and that's book 1 of the Iliad's 24 books. So, without Achilles, the Trojans start winning. By book 12, they're at the Greek fortifications. By book 15, they're about to burn their ships. Book 16, Achilles' double best friend, Patroclus, dresses up in Achilles' armor, routs the Trojans, and then, overreaching, he's killed by Hector. That's Hector, son of Troy's king Priam. So Achilles starts killing Trojans. By book 22, he's killed Hector, drags his body around the city. And in the last book, book 24, Priam appears in Achilles' tent. They grieve together. Achilles for Patroclus, Priam for Hector. And the poem concludes with Hector's funeral. So this is the backbone plot of the Iliad. The backbone plot, not some sideshow or obscure subplot. The Briseis slight to Achilles' honor leads to the greater loss of Patroclus' life. Achilles' revenge, killing Hector, does not quench his grief, because revenge does not quench grief. Revenge does not quench grief. And Homer provides no answer for what does. Sometimes a culture's unanswerable questions become simply ignored. And we, as a Western culture, with our tradition of eye-tooth justice, with revenge dressed up in the robes of justice, we've forgotten ever knowing this, that revenge does not fill that emptiness that grief carves out of us. So we do revenge anyway. Get even anyway. It's in the Bible, in our laws. That's honor culture. Yet, as Homer scholar and translator Emily Wilson comments, even enemies like Priam and Achilles can share a moment of grief. Anger drives communities apart. grief brings them together over a shared acknowledgement of irredeemable loss. Grief can bring communities together. And in this, there's a sub-vocal whisper of an answer to a question that we've forgotten how to ask. And from this nation, the United States of America, from its founding era comes an extraordinary, forgotten story of grief and reconciliation. We, the Anglo-Americans, did not write this story. We, Anglo-Americans, forgot this story, this extraordinary, forgotten story. It's 1722, February, province of Pennsylvania. Quaker founder William Penn, he's been dead for 4 years. And this story starts out very badly. In Conestoga, Pennsylvania, 2 white traders, brothers John and Edmund Cartledge, brawl drunkenly with Sawantini, a chief of the Seneca Nation. It's a trade deal gone bad. The Seneca are one of the 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee, sometimes called the Iroquois. Sawantini dies of his injuries from this alcohol-laden brawl. Across Iroquois, it's a diplomatic crisis. And if this were a movie western, or a Homeric poem, or in the Bible, you can just imagine what comes next. Native warriors silhouette on the ridgeline, war whoops, then motion blurs into a charge. It's war for revenge, for honor, for justice, and that's what the colonial leaders imagined. So, they went all proactive, like good Englishmen. They arrested John and Edmund Cartledge, slammed their tuckuses into Philadelphia's cramped attic jail for murder, and that's a capital crime. Intent on trying them in court, talked of hanging them until dead, those Cartledges. Hoping, in doing so, both to prevent a war, to resolve a diplomatic crisis, and to demonstrate the superiority of the Anglo-American legal system. A nice, tidy package. And then the really interesting stuff started happening. A Cayuga hunter of some status, Sachichowi, rode into Philadelphia and said what the Haudenosaunee really thought. Yes, this is a big deal. So gather the governors of the provinces of New York and Pennsylvania and the Commonwealth of Virginia to come to Albany and meet with the leaders of the 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee. And they desired the Cartledges may not die for this. They want reparations, not retributions. The Pennsylvania governor protests that by the laws of the great king, Such a man by our laws must die. Sachichoe is a skilled diplomat traveling regularly among the 5 nations. He says, one life is enough to be lost. There should not 2 die. Albany happens. Reconciliation happens. A combination of wealth transfer, expressed empathy, and spiritual engagement by John Cartledge, and witnessed by the representatives of the 3 English colonies. By extension, reconciliation echoed from these representations. Many speeches from the Haudenosaunee, somewhat recorded by colonial scribes and soon forgotten. A Haudenosaunee representative declared, "We do, in the name of all the 5 nations, forgive the offense and desire you will likewise forgive it." So the Cartledges were released, and for good measure, as a courtesy, the Haudenosaunee confirmed colonial land claims. So that's why the Great Treaty of 1722 has been continuously honored to this day as a flick of a real estate deal. So, what happened here? Well, from the Anglo-American point of view, it's a business deal. No war, confirmed land claims, 2 of their own not hanged. In exchange for not dishing out eye-tooth justice just one time, no hanging, no war. From the point of view of the 5 nations, Sawantaini's widow, Winnipiweta, received compensation in trade goods and a ritualized closure for her loss. A darn sock with scar. Winnipiweta's heart now carried a scar. She wasn't made whole, but held now some implied social capital. John Cartledge, both a high-status trader and a justice of the peace, now owed her something intangible. John Cartledge was restored as a friend of the Haudenosaunee and as a trader with them. Grief can draw communities together. So I have 3 footnotes here, and together they kind of create one subplot. Footnote 1, in the Iliad, as Hector gets ready to fight his wife Andromache, pled caution. If Troy fell, she'd be widowed, likely raped, but certainly enslaved. And Hector's reply is, if that happened, he, Hector, would be dead, so he wouldn't hear her screams. In this world, Andromache was chattel, a cow, and cows can't complain about ownership changes. Footnote 2, Cartledge's victim, Sawantaini, his last words were to his wife, Winnipiweta, quote, "My friends have killed me," unquote. For the Haudenosaunee, these words set in motion the case for reconciliation. Footnote 3, John Cartledge's public arrest. His wife Elizabeth Cartledge was there. As John's chained up and carted off, Elizabeth broke down, weeping inconsolably. They grew up on neighboring farms. It's as if her whole life she and John were destined for one another. And with John arrested, she'd have no economic rights. Chattel don't. Cartledge's arrest leaves Elizabeth instantly destitute. The Haudenosaunee women ran up to console her. For in Haudenosaunee culture, a woman's inconsolable crying was a call to war. Sawantani's words, "My friends have killed me," anchor the Haudenosaunee case for reconciliation. The arrest of John Cartledge, its indifference to secondary effects, undermined reconciliation. Returning to justice. If you think about it, eye-tooth justice looks backwards, into the past. Revenge reacts to the past insult or injury. In contrast, the restorative justice of the Haudenosaunee looks forward, contemplates the future we'd like to have. Like, okay, that was bad. How do we fix this? A crime tears a hole in the social fabric, and restorative justice patches the social fabric, darns it up. Not perfect. Darning leaves a scar, but it's serviceable. Adds a layer. History. The poem Noreen read today by Naomi Shihab Nye, Jerusalem. To me, the first lines are key. I'm not interested in who suffered the most. I'm interested in people getting over it. This looks forward, calls forth to imagine a world we want to live in tomorrow. This is the essence of restorative justice, this forward-looking viewpoint. Her next lines. Once when my father was a boy, a stone hit him on the head. Hair would never grow there. So Nye's father had a scar. You darn a sock, you leave a scar. Every scar tells a story. So does every darned sock. And every scar tells a story ending in hope. Life, wound, scar, more life. In 6 words, Nye's poem ends. It's late, but everything comes next. This both acknowledges the burden of history, the wounds, and calls us into the future, scars and more life. Like you wake up, after an awful storm, you wake up into a clear blue morning, wearing some cozy darn socks and a smile beside your life's other scars. And you just know the rest of your day is going to be beautiful. Because it may be late, but everything comes next. So darn it. Go and weave some peace. Oh. Speaking of peace, let's pause to enjoy this beautiful ballad, Clear Blue Morning, sung from the heart of Gigi Cohen.
Dolly Parton wrote this song, but I'm going to be singing it in a completely different style than she sang it, because Noreen and Bill suggested a particular style that I studied, and that's how I'm going to sing it. So if you know it, it won't be like you know it. It's been a long, dark night, and I've been looking for the morning. It's been a long, hard fight, but I see a brand new day dawning, and I've been looking for the sunshine, 'cause I ain't seen it in a long time, and everything is gonna work out just fine. Everything's gonna be alright. That's been all wrong, 'cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. And I can see the light of a brand new morning. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. It's been a long, long time since I've known the taste of freedom. It's those clinging vines that kept me bound. Well, I don't need them. Then I feel like a captured eagle. You know, an eagle's born to fly. And you know that now that I have won my freedom, like an eagle I'm eager to take to the sky, 'cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a clear blue day, and I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. Okay, I invite you to join in if you want to sing the chorus, because I'm going to sing it a couple more times. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. One more time. And I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. And I can see the light of a brand new morning. Everything's gonna be alright. case you doubt that. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay.